Hey everyone, welcome to the channel for some more Escape from Tarkov weapon builds. In this one, I'm taking a look at the 5.56, AK-101, and AK-102 after they received a pretty significant buff recently, just like the 7.62 AKs. The AK-101 and 102 are kind of the awkward stepchildren of the AK family in Tarkov. They can take almost all the same attachments, except for muzzle devices and magazines, but they use 5.56 ammo, and for a long time, they weren't that great stats-wise. After their recoil buff though, the 5.56 AKs can get down to very competitive recoil levels, and with all the buffs to M855A1 ammo, the AK-101 and 102 have access to a very effective budget ammo type that has awesome muzzle velocity and accuracy compared to most other AK rifles. These rifles actually end up being some of the best suppressed AK builds as well, because they can use both a suppressor and compensator, unlike other AKs. On the downside, these AKs have a lower fire rate compared to the AK-74, and they're limited to only 30-round magazines, which can be seen as kind of a big downside. All things considered though, after the buff, I think they're a pretty solid choice, and in this video I'll be going over a few builds that I've been liking this patch on the 5.56 AK-101 and 102. Keep in mind, there's tons of different effective builds you can make for any AK because there's a ton of different parts to experiment with, and these are just some of the presets that I've been using this patch. So with that intro out of the way, let's take a look at these 5.56 AK setups. For the first build in this video, I've got a fairly budget price setup that can work with both the AK-101 and 102 that actually ends up with close to identical stats on each one. It's not the cheapest AK build I've ever done, and some of the parts are locked behind Mechanic 2 and Peacekeeper 3, but these AKs are honestly best used after unlocking M855A1 ammo at Peacekeeper level 3 anyways. Plus, my other budget AK builds more or less work on these rifles, so you can easily transfer my pure budget AK build from other videos if that's what you're looking for. For this build, the first upgrade compensator you'll get for the AK-101 is the SRVV compensator at Mechanic level 2, which is fairly cheap and gets you some decent recoil reduction. The handguard on this is the MOE AK handguard, sold by Peacekeeper level 3, Skier level 3, and also on the market for a pretty decent price most of the time. It's got nice stats and comes in plenty of colors for all your fashion needs. This handguard takes M-LOK rails to mount most foregrips, but you can also just get the M-LOK AFG grip from Peacekeeper or on the flea market and just stick it straight on the handguard. I kind of like doing this setup on these AKs since they have low base recoil anyways, and the extra ergonomics from this grip was pretty nice on the build. Next up, for the optic on these AKs, I've just been sticking with the OKP7 dovetail reflex sight. I like the reticle a lot better than the Cobra. It gets you some extra recoil reduction, and you don't need any extra mounts for it. The last piece of this build is the GP25 recoil pad, sold by Proper level 2. This is one of the cheapest and most underrated attachments for AKs, getting the default stock pretty close to best in slot stats for only 3,000 rubles. It's not quite as good as the top tier PT stocks, but it's very close for a fraction of the price and always a good choice on budget builds. That pretty much covers it for this build. It's very straightforward and only requires a few extra parts. For the overall stats, the AK-101 comes out with 68 recoil and 57 ergonomics, while the shorter AK-102 comes out with 69 recoil and 65 ergonomics. I was kind of surprised how close the 101 and 102 were on recoil, but unfortunately the AK-102 is quite a bit more expensive, so I think you're all around better off with the AK-101. For the total cost on this one, you're looking at around 85,000 rubles for the AK-101 and about 100,000 on the AK-102 because it's more expensive on the flea market and from the traders. Next up, I've got an upgrade to this build that gets a pretty significant recoil reduction compared to the budget setup for about 40k extra on the price tag. It's not the most cost-effective mid-tier build I've ever done, but the AK-101 isn't really a budget weapon anyways, and I've been looking for an excuse to talk about the handguard on this build for a while now. This setup will also only work on the AK-101 because the handguard doesn't fit onto the shorter AK-102. Starting from the front, the AK-101 can use the 5.56 PWS CQB compensator, sold by Skier level 3 to get some pretty good recoil reduction at around 10k rubles. It's not quite the best in slot piece, but it's definitely the most cost-effective one. Next up, the handguard on this one is the Krebs Custom UFM handguard, sold by Peacekeeper level 4 for about $200. This one has a great balance of higher than average recoil and ergonomics, but it's a little bit on the expensive side. You'll also need the Kiba Arms VDM CS gas tube, sold by Peacekeeper level 3 to use this handguard, so don't forget to pick that up as well, otherwise you can't install the handguard. To get a foregrip and other attachments onto this handguard, you'll need CASV or key mod rails, and after adding those, I went with the Zenit RK1 foregrip on this build to bring the recoil down. For the optic, I stuck with the Dovetail OKP7 reflex sight because of the recoil reduction and the fact that you don't need an extra mount for it. The stock on this build was switched over to the PT1 Classica stock, mounted on a PT lock adapter, both from Skier Level 2. This one is a great cost-effective option, and you could also just toss this stock plus the PWS compensator and the RK1 foregrip onto the budget build and get yourself a pretty significant upgrade as well. Finally, the last piece I swapped on this build is for the Tapco saw-style pistol grip, giving you a solid plus 10 ergo for only about $40. For the overall stats on this one, the AK-101 comes out with 57 recoil and around 60 ergonomics, for about 125,000 rubles total. It's a pretty big reduction in recoil compared to the budget build, and if you want to shave a little off the price, you can just use a cheaper handguard. If you want to run this build or any 5.56 AK build suppressed, I think the best option is to use the new Surefire SOCOM suppressor. First, you need to get the CNC Warrior AK adapter from Mechanic Level 3, which lets you add AR-15 muzzle devices to the AK-101. Next, grab the Surefire SF3P muzzle device from Mechanic Level 2 and the SOCOM RC2 suppressor on the flea market, and that'll get you nearly best in slot recoil stats while also running suppressed, which is pretty cool since other AK suppressors have much lower recoil stats. For the last build in this video, I've got a high-end late-game setup that will work on both the AK-101 and AK-102, using one of my favorite AK attachments, the Aggressor handguard, as a much more cost-effective alternative to the best-in-slot CMRD handguard. I think this build is pretty cool because it's a nearly best-in-slot setup that actually works with both short and long AK variants, and gets some really amazing recoil stats for a suppressed AK build. To start this build off, I'm using the suppressor I mentioned right at the end of the previous build, so for a quick recap, you'll first need the CNC Warrior adapter at Mechanic Level 3. Next, add the Surefire SF3P muzzle device from Mechanic Level 2, and then the SOCOM RC2 suppressor on the flea market, usually at around 25 to 30,000 rubles. For comparison, the Wave suppressor and muzzle brake is actually the best in slot option here, but it's over double the price and only gets around 1 to 2% extra recoil reduction, which makes the SOCOM suppressor a much better option in my opinion. For the handguard, I went with the Aggressor AK handguard for this setup, which is sold by Mechanic Level 4. This is a pretty great cost-effective alternative to the best in slot handguard, with only 1% less recoil reduction for about 12,000 rubles cheaper. Plus, you don't need any extra rails for this one, and it looks pretty awesome as well, so all things considered, it's a win all around. The foregrip on this one is the RK1, same as the previous build, because all around it's one of the best choices for getting to low recoil without killing your ergonomics. Next up, the optic on this one is also the same, going with the Dovetail OKP7 reflex sight for that extra little bit of recoil control. For the stock, I upgraded it to the PT3 Classica stock sold by Skier Level 3, which is the actual best in slot option for the modern AK rifles with great recoil and ergo stats all around. You will need a PT lock adapter for this one as well, sold by Skier Level 2. The final piece of this build is the Zenit RK3 pistol grip, which is the best in slot grip for AKs and is a pretty good price at Skier Level 3. For the overall stats on this one, the AK-101 comes out with 49 recoil and around 60 ergonomics, and the AK-102 comes out with 51 recoil and around 65 ergonomics. For the total price of this build, it's about 163,000 rubles total to set this up on the AK-101, and about 20k more for the AK-102 because of the higher price for that rifle. Personally, I think 160k for a low recoil suppressed rifle is pretty good, and I think the only thing really holding it back at this point is the lack of any larger magazines, so you're stuck with 30 rounders. Well, that about covers it for these builds. I hope it shows a little bit of what makes the AK-101 and 102 unique, and maybe convinces you to give them a try sometime. After the buff to their recoil stats, I think they're a pretty solid mid-game option, especially considering you can buy M855A1 ammo to feed these things from the traders at a really good price, and it's all around one of the best budget ammo types out there right now. The 30 round mags can be an issue in close range fights, but the AK-101 has a very high muzzle velocity and can run top tier suppressors, which means it works pretty well at making those long shots and setting up good builds for stealthy runs. In any case, let me know what you think of the AK-101 and 102 down below, and I'd love to see your own unique builds. I'll be streaming more Escape from Tarkov on Twitch, and if you want to catch some raids, I've got a link to that down in the description. There's also links to my Twitter and Discord server, and my Patreon page for anyone looking to join the community or support the channel. Thanks for checking out the video. Feel free to leave any comments, corrections, or suggestions down below, and until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City.